My name is Devin Keller. I work as a freelance nature photographer, mostly covering state parks and forgotten places for small travel magazines. People often say I'm lucky, getting paid to wander forests and take pictures. But last fall, something happened in the Pacific Northwest that made me pack up my gear for good. You can call me dramatic, paranoid, whatever you want, but I know what I saw, and I know what followed me back. It started with a simple assignment. A local magazine wanted shots of a nearly untouched patch of forest in Washington state. Rare moss growth, untouched rivers, that sort of thing. The only catch was, it wasn't marked on public maps. Just GPS coordinates, emailed to me by a researcher who supposedly visited last year. I arrived around noon, parked near an old Forest Service gate, and hiked for nearly 3 hours through thick brush. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. No birds, no wind, just the soft crunch of leaves under my boots. Then I found it. A narrow trail, barely visible, lined with tree trunks that had strange carvings, symbols I didn't recognize, almost like long, twisted letters. I snapped a few photos, telling myself it was probably some old tribal marking or forgotten park signage. As I walked further in, my phone lost signal. Then my compass spun. No joke, completely lost its mind. But I was used to stuff like that, in dense woods. I kept going. I finally found a clearing with thick green moss and a strange circular stone formation. It looked unnatural, like a ritual site or an old settlement. I took a few pictures and turned around. But the trail was gone. I circled the clearing 3 times. Nothing. No trail. No broken branches. It was like I'd stepped through a fold in reality. Then I heard something. A slow, wet whisper behind me. Not wind, not a branch, a voice. It said, "Wrong path." I ran. I didn't care about my gear or the direction. I just needed to get away from that voice. But the deeper I ran, the stranger the woods became. The trees grew closer together. Their bark was dark, almost black, and their roots twisted unnaturally above the ground, like they'd been forced up by something beneath. Night fell faster than I expected. I built a small fire and sat with my back to a tree, hoping to wait out until dawn. That's when I saw them. Figures, not people, but copies of people. They moved like humans but had no faces, just stretched, smooth skin where features should be. They stood around the edges of the firelight, unmoving, as if studying me. Then one of them spoke, but it used my voice. "Don't leave, Devin," it said, mimicking a line I'd recorded earlier into my phone. I stood, heart pounding, as another figure stepped forward, taller, head tilted at a sharp angle. It had my face, but the eyes were too large, too dark, and the mouth was locked in a grin that never moved. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire and swung wildly. The figures hissed and backed into the shadows. I ran again. Somehow, I stumbled back into the clearing from earlier. But this time, the stones were glowing faintly red, and something was standing inside the circle, tall, spindly, draped in what looked like moss and bone. It didn't move, but I knew it was watching. I passed out. I woke up at dawn. Everything was normal. The clearing was empty. My camera bag was where I left it, but the SD card was fried, melted in the slot. I used the sun to guide myself out and miraculously found my car by midday. I didn't tell the magazine anything. I told them I got sick and couldn't complete the assignment. I went home, showered, slept, tried to forget. But something came back with me. It started small, a reflection in the mirror that blinked when I didn't, a shadow that lingered in the hallway. Then, at 3:17 a.m. every night, I'd hear it, that wet whisper. Wrong path. One night, I found my bedroom window wide open. A trail of moss and twigs led from it to the foot of my bed. I moved apartments, burned all my hiking gear, got a new phone. Nothing worked. Because this thing, whatever it is, it doesn't need a forest to follow you. It just needs a path. And I think I opened one. Now it wants me to come back. Or worse, it wants to bring more of itself here. So if you're ever deep in the woods and find a trail that shouldn't be there, don't follow it. No matter what you hear, no matter what voice it uses. Because some trails don't lead out. They let things out. It was late October when it happened. I was driving from Tennessee to West Virginia to meet an old college friend. The trip wasn't supposed to be complicated. A straight shot through the interstate, about 6 hours. I'd left early in the afternoon, and by the time evening started to creep in, I was already getting tired from the long drive. I was maybe 30 miles from the town when I saw the flashing signs. Bridge closed, road blocked ahead. A line of cars had already turned back. I slowed down and saw it myself. Large trees had collapsed over the bridge, probably from the storm that had passed through the night before. No choice. I opened my phone and let the map recalculate. It rerouted me down a small road I hadn't noticed before. Wolf Creek Lane. Narrow, unpaved, and lined with dense woods on either side. It didn't look ideal, but it was still showing as the fastest alternate route. I followed it. The deeper I went, the fewer signs of life I saw. No houses, no lights, just forest swallowing the path. My headlights barely cut through the fog beginning to roll in. Around 8:30 p.m., I felt exhausted. I'd been driving all day, and my eyes were beginning to burn. So I pulled off to the side, where the trees opened just enough for my van to fit. The forest was eerily still. No wind, no animals, no sound. I locked the doors, reclined the seat, and opened my laptop to watch something to help me relax before sleeping. That's when I noticed it. A soft reflection of light on my laptop screen. A shimmer, like someone briefly flashed a flashlight outside the van. I spun around quickly. Nothing. I shrugged it off. Maybe a bug flew across the glass. Maybe I was just tired. I wish that was all it was. 15 minutes passed. I paused the video I was watching, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, crunching the dried leaves outside the van. At first I thought, maybe a deer, but they weren't scattered or fast. These were deliberate steps, human steps. I sat frozen, barely breathing. Then I heard a voice, low, raspy, just outside the passenger side.
He's in the van.
Another voice responded, muffled, closer to the back.
Should we wait until he sleeps?
I felt cold from the inside out. My blood felt like ice water. I immediately reached for the front lock and double-checked it was sealed. I wanted to look out the window, but I was too scared they might see movement, so I crouched behind the front seats, trying not to make a sound. Then came the first knock. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, again. No words, just deliberate knocking. Same spot, same rhythm. I kept my mouth shut and stayed low. My heart was pounding in my ears. Then, after a long pause, a loud, commanding voice thundered from outside the driver's side window.
Sheriff, open up.
But something in the tone was off. It was too flat. No urgency, just loud, like someone imitating authority. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The footsteps eventually faded, but not far. The rain started a little after midnight. Heavy, constant. It hit the roof of the van like a war drum. I stayed curled up in the back, clutching a tire iron I'd kept under the seat, my eyes glued to the door, waiting for another knock. But none came. I don't know how I drifted into sleep, but I did, only for a little while. When I woke up, the rain had stopped. Everything outside was soaked, and my phone had no signal. It was still dark, probably early morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to leave. Without checking the windows, I slid into the driver's seat, started the van, and followed the GPS path again. The narrow road twisted endlessly between trees, and the deeper I drove, the more I felt watched. I finally reached an open stretch, a bridge over a small creek, and as I crossed, I glanced into the side mirror. Nothing. No one was following me. No cars, no figures. Just the empty road behind. But when I checked the back window, there was something written in the condensation of the glass from inside the van. Shouldn't have stopped. I didn't stop again until I reached the main road. I didn't even look back. It's been 2 years. I've never told anyone that story until now. I'm not what you'd call a nature person. I prefer the hum of city life, the flicker of screens, and the safety of streetlights. But when my therapist suggested disconnecting, go off-grid, find silence, I gave in. I booked a solo hiking trip through Grapevine Forest in Oregon, a place with winding trails and no phone reception past the visitor center. A local ranger named Ben handed me a paper map and a satellite whistle. "Just in case," he said, tapping the whistle. "You hear anything weird? Don't wait. Blow it." I laughed it off. Weird? Like what? Wolves? By late afternoon, I was miles into the forest, under a fading sun. It was peaceful. Silent, yes, but with just enough birdsong and leaf rustling to keep it from being eerie. Until I stopped hearing anything at all. Like, the entire forest just muted itself. No wind, no birds. Not even my own footsteps seemed to crunch like they had before. I stood still. The stillness stood with me. Then something cracked. Not from my feet. From behind a tree, maybe 20 feet to my left. I called out, "Hey, who's there?" No answer. Another snap. Closer. My heart kicked against my ribs. I moved fast, following the trail on my map toward a spot labeled Creek Shelter. It was an old ranger rest point, half collapsed but marked as safe in emergencies. The sun was nearly down. As I hurried, the sound behind me picked up. Not just snapping now. Breathing. Soft, wrong breathing. Not like a bear or wolf. It sounded like someone trying not to be heard but failing. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I reached the old shelter and shoved myself inside. Dust, rotten wood, and an old metal lantern greeted me. I locked the broken door with a rope I had. Outside, everything went quiet again until I heard it. Right outside the wooden wall, just inches from where my head rested, a whisper.
"You didn't blow the whistle."
I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner with my flashlight gripped so tight my knuckles cracked. The whisper haunted me. Not just the words, but how close it had been. No footsteps, no rustling, just voice. And it wasn't mine. Morning came slow. Light spilled in like it was afraid to enter. The trees outside were still. No animals, not even bugs. I opened the door, half expecting someone, something, to be waiting. Nothing. But, carved into the outside wall of the shelter, in straight, deep gouges were the words, "You don't belong." I turned to the trail, planning to hike back the way I came. But the path was gone. I swear, it was there the night before. The dirt trail, the markers on trees. Now, just forest. Thick, pressing forest, like it grew overnight to swallow. The way out. I climbed a tree for a better view. No clearings, no shelter roofs, just endless woods in every direction. But as I stared, I spotted something strange between the trees. Patches of cleared ground, perfectly round and dark. Burnt circles, maybe 5 of them, each one with a single wooden post in the center, like makeshift altars. I climbed down and picked a direction, hoping it'd lead somewhere. As I walked, I noticed something disturbing. My footprints were being covered, not by wind or rain, by the forest itself, leaves shifting, moss creeping, trees moving. I picked up speed. By noon, I was back where I started. The same tree with the same twisted root, the same carved words on the shelter wall, and someone had added a line underneath. Running makes it worse. That night, I stayed in the shelter again, but this time, the whisper returned with a sound, a dragging sound, and breathing. It circled the shelter, and then it started tapping. One finger, on the wall. In silence, until it whispered.
You belong soon.
Day 3. I was tired, filthy, and out of food. I tried to mark trees, leave signs, but the forest erased them. I blew the whistle Ranger Ben gave. Me. Nothing happened. No rescue. No animals. Just something watching. I came across one of the burned circles I'd seen from the treetop. The air above it buzzed, not with sound, but with pressure, like the air was vibrating or breathing. A post stood in the center, and hanging from it was a backpack. My backpack, the one I'd buried deep inside my tent the night before. Inside, it was a photo. Me, standing in the shelter, taken from outside the window, and a note. The longer you stay, the more it understands you. That night, I didn't go to the shelter. I climbed high into the trees, hiding in the branches. I watched from above as something arrived. It didn't walk, it slid. Limbs too long, skin like bark but darker, shifting as if it absorbed. Light. It walked into the shelter. I heard it speak again for the last time.
He's almost ready.